Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. Of course, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, and this is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. Today, we're going to just talk a little bit of SWAC basketball, man. We down to the last 7 games of the season. So I wanted to go ahead and start taking a look at the conference races on the men's side. This thing is a jumbled mess, and it's going to probably be this way to the end. Really, I feel like anybody that makes the tournament can win it. At least right now, sitting here looking at things, because there's been some, real topsy-turvy action all season, and teams have been upset. Teams have pulled upsets, and so we're just gonna take a look at the conference race, and we'll kind of give my thoughts on how things are shaping up and how I think they're gonna go. Before we do all of that, man, y'all make sure y'all hit my socials. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. I do write for BustinBrackets.com, so I have my latest power rankings up on that site. If you want to access it directly, BustinBrackets.com. If not, you can go to my socials, and I have a link there. Also, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts on the action that's taking place in SWAC men's basketball. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Of course, as I record this, today is Saturday afternoon, so the games haven't taken place yet today. So everything I'm saying now can be totally different by the end of the day, and especially by the end of Monday. And I'm gonna do this at least 2 more times before the end of the season. Just kind of give you an update on how things are shaping up and who's playing, who's doing what. So with all that being said, man, let's take a look at today's schedule. First and foremost, we'll take a look at the schedule for today. Right now, Alabama A&M and Valley are playing. They're playing right now. Alcorn and Bethune-Cookman should be tipping off any minute. So those are 2 games that will be in play while we record. After that, Grambling is at Texas Southern. That's a 5 p.m. tip, approximately. FAMU is at Jackson State. That's a 5:30 tip. Southern at Prairie View. That's a 5:30 tip. And Pine Bluff at Alabama State, also a 5:30 tip. Looking at the Monday's games, Bethune-Cookman is at Jackson State, 7:30. Grambling at Prairie View, 7:30. FAMU at Alcorn, 7:30. Pine Bluff at Alabama A&M, 7:30. Valley at Bama State, 7:30. And Southern at Texas Southern, 7:30. So those are the games for this week, and they're gonna definitely impact our standings. And taking a look at the standings, Southern is in first place at 9-2, 15-9 overall. They've won 6 in a row. Grambling is 8-3, 11-13 overall. They've lost 1. Bethune-Cookman is 7-4, 12-12 overall. They've won 2 in a row. Texas Southern 7-4, 9-13 overall. They've lost 1. Bama State 6-5, 11-13 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. Jackson State 6-5, 10-14 overall. They've won 2 in a row. Alcorn 6-5, 7-17. They've won 2 in a row. Pine Bluff 5-6, 10-14 overall. They've lost 3 in a row. Prairie View is 5-6, 10-14 overall. They've won 1. Alabama A&M is 5-6, 6-18 overall. They've won 1, and Florida A&M is 2-9, 4-18 overall. 4-18 overall. They've lost 4 in a row. And Valley is the 0-11 and 0-24 overall. They've lost 24 straight games. So first and foremost, the SWAC takes 8 teams to the tournament. So right now we realistically have, I would say, 11 out of the 12 teams have a realistic shot of making the tournament. we'll start off with the number. We'll start off with 12. Valley is basically out. For Valley to make the tournament, they will have to win out, and they would need FAMU to lose 3 games, and then the 3 teams who have 6 losses would all have to lose at least 6 games. So they would need everybody ahead of them basically to lose out, and they would need to win out to make the tournament. And with sitting at 0-11, the odds of you winning out are slim. Stranger things have happened, but I don't see that happening. I do think Valley will win a game before the end of the season, but I don't think they'll, go on some miraculous run and make the tournament. So you can strike them out. You can strike them off the list right now. FAMU is at 2-9 and they're number 11. They are hanging on by a thread. Like I said, they would need some chaos in front of them. Not as much as Valley, but they would definitely need to win out. I think winning out puts them at 9-9, and at 9-9, you're probably, maybe you're comfortably in the tournament at a 6 or 7 seed, depending on how everybody does. So, winning out would definitely put you in the SWAC tournament most likely. And they would need the 3 6-loss teams to lose at least 4 games. I think one more loss and FAMU is out. So this weekend they play Jackson State and Alcorn. So I can see them being eliminated by this weekend. But if they were to, find a way to win these 2 games, they will find themselves still with an outside shot. But that shot is very slim. So I'm not going to strike them out. No pun intended. I'm not going to strike them off the list until after the weekend. So right now, going into the action, they're hanging on by fingernails. This is where things start to get messy, and it's really hard to break down who needs to do what. So I just kind of went through and said what games they have remaining and what teams they have tiebreakers over. So that helps with with the standings and the seedings, and I'll give my thoughts on where I think these teams will end up. Very this is very fluid. So right now at number 10 is Alabama A&M. They play Valley today. They play Pine Bluff on Monday. They go to Bethune-Cookman and FAMU next week. The following week they get Bama State at home, and then they close out at home against Grambling and Southern. They lost the series against Prairie View, who right now is sitting at that 8th spot. So right now those teams played only once this year. They don't play again. So they lost their series 0-1. They play Pine Bluff on Monday, and they lead the series against Pine Bluff 1-0. So if they were to pick up a win over Pine Bluff, who is on a losing streak, they would find themselves at least in the standings in case of tiebreaks ahead of Pine Bluff, because they would win the season series. Other than that, they lost to Jackson State, who is another team in front of them, directly in front of them. They lost to Alcorn, and they lost to Bama State. So they're a team who is playing. They do have an upset over Grambling. That's a big win for them. But they mainly have had their success against the teams kind of around their level. So they would have to start to beat some teams ahead of them. The Grambling win was a great win in that aspect, so they can do it. But will they do it? That's the thing. They have some margin for error when sitting in that tie. I would think 9 losses in conference would probably be the minimum, the maximum losses that you could have to get into the tournament. An 8 seed may have 10 losses, but I don't see a team with more than 9 losses making it into the conference tournament. So they have, obviously they have some margin for error to make that 8th spot. But if they want to move up, they're gonna have to win the majority of those last games and need those teams they're tied with to lose some of their games. Pine Bluff, again, similar situation. Record is the same, but their outlook is a little different. They play at Bama State today. They're at Alabama A&M, which obviously Monday is a huge game for the standings. They get Prairie View and Texas Southern at home. They get Valley at home, then they close out at Alcorn and at Jackson State. So um, they play 4 of their games are against basically the top half, are teams who are at the top half of the conference or can be. So their schedule is very tough at the end. Closing out at Jackson and at Alcorn are huge games. They really need to pick up as many wins as they can, but the Tech Southern game sitting there next week is huge on next Monday. Um, and the games against Alcorn and Jackson are huge. Pine Bluff hasn't played great on the road. They did beat Texas Southern and Grambling on the road. So they have pulled off some victories on the road, but they haven't really played great basketball in these last couple of weeks. And they need to kind of get themselves back on track. They're kind of looking like they did last year when they lost like 5 or 6 games in the middle of the season in a row. They're on a 3-game slide right now. They really need to pick up a win against Bama State to kind of A, to keep their confidence, and B, to keep pace in the division and in the conference, and maybe even jump ahead of some people because Bama State is ahead of them by a game. So that's a big game in terms of movement. But right now, I think unless Pine Bluff can find a way to get themselves on track, I can honestly see them missing this tournament. And that's a shame because this is a very good offensive team. They could be a dangerous factor in a one-and-done situation, but right now I don't see it because they're not playing solid ball right now. They need to really turn things around to get themselves into the tournament. Number 8, which is the last spot right now, that's Prairie View, and they again have a kind of tough task on their hands. They get Southern and Grambling this weekend, so if they were to win those 2 games, they would be solidly in. I think if they won those 2 games, they'd be sitting at 7-6, and they would be sitting in a very good spot. If they lose the 2 games, they would be sitting at 5-8, and they would be not out, but they would be in danger of missing out. So this weekend is very huge for Prairie View with those two tough games ahead of them. They do get Valley and Pine Bluff after that, and then on the road, and then they get Alcorn and Jackson at home and close out at Texas Southern. So again, just like Pine Bluff, they have a very tough close to their schedule. They play a lot of teams who are high in the standings, so these games are must wins for them. I don't like to say a team needs to win one out of 2 at home because I feel like you need to win all your home games. But Prairie View definitely needs to win at least one of these games this weekend. If they don't, then they are probably going to miss out on the tournament. So my prediction for Prairie View to make the tournament hinges directly on this weekend. If they win 1 out of 2 or both, then they're going to make the tournament. If they don't win either of these games this weekend, then they won't make the tournament. So it's pretty cut and dry for them. I think winning, you win, you lose, and you're out. Obviously, these 2 games are not the deciding factor. I think they just will help solidify where you are in the standings. Number 7 right now is Alcorn. Due to basically, my tiebreaker is head-to-head, but with the SWAC and the 3-team, 4-team tiebreakers, you do all kind of scientific things. But right now, I think Alcorn is at the 7th spot. They lost to Bama State and Jackson State, so they're behind both of those teams who are tied with them, basically for 5th place. So that's why I put them there. But I think Alcorn still has a great chance if they can win these games. They have 5. They have 6. They have 6 straight. They have 6 of their they have 5 of their 7 games at home. My math is not mathing. They have 5 of their remaining 7 games at home, and that's huge for a team that's pretty tough at home. So I think they're in a very good shape to make it. I don't see them not making it. Of course, Bethune-Cookman is a big game today. Jackson State's a big game next week. Prairie View, not next week. Prairie View and Texas Southern are big games. Jackson State is a big game. Jackson State rewind. Jackson State is a big game next week. Prairie View and Texas Southern are crucial games on the road. And then they close out with Valley, which should be a win, and Pine Bluff, which probably, can be a win because you beat them once already on the road. So it's a favorable schedule for them. They do play three teams who I consider to be top teams. But right now, I think with the majority of those games at home, I think they have a good shot at making it. If it would really take something catastrophic for them not to make the tournament. I think they're probably going to finish higher than a 7 seed because I still think there's going to be a little bit more movement in those higher seeds. Right now, I would put them at a 5 or a 6, maybe even a 4 because they only have 5 losses right now. Maybe a 4 seed, depending on how things shape up ahead of them. But I do think they're in. I think for Alcorn, the remaining games are just for seeding purposes. Because I think that they're gonna make it. They're playing, that they've kind of gotten themselves back on track. So I think they're gonna finish out strong. Not having to play Grambling and Southern definitely helps. I mean, they, of course, you would love to get that opportunity to beat those guys. You lost to them both, but you would have loved to have the opportunity to pick up another couple wins against those 2 teams. But you don't have that, so that kind of, in one way that hurts you, but in another way that helps you because you don't have to worry about playing those guys again till the tournament. Number 6 is Bama State, and I think Bama State sitting at 6-5. Their schedule is at home against Pine Bluff, at home against Valley, at FAMU, at Bethune-Cookman, at Alabama A&M, and then at home against Southern and Grambling. They lost to Southern, they lost to Grambling, they lost to Jackson State, they lost to Texas Southern, and they lost to Prairie View. So they really are playing a few teams that have beaten them. So it's going to be tough for them to find that momentum. Getting back home is definitely huge. Getting back home and trying to find some footing and get yourself back on track, I think is huge. You have to be able to, win these couple games at home first and then let the chips fall where they may. So they have 2 games that are very winnable at home this weekend. This Pine Bluff game is a big game, but I think Bama State can win that game. If they win that game, then I think they're in good shape. Playing on the road at FAMU, Bethune-Cookman is going to be tough. Going to Alabama A&M is going to be tough. These next 5 games are going to determine where they end up. If they come out of those 5 games at 3-2, then they're sitting at 9-7 going into their final 2 games, and they will probably be comfortably in at 9-7 before the end of the season. Anything worse than that, I think they're going to be fighting for that last spot. They cannot afford, even though they have the same record as Alcorn and Jackson State, they can't really afford to lose a lot of games because I think I guess my trust level for them is not as high as other teams, which is that's just me. I think they're a talented squad. I think they're a very athletic squad. I saw them play in person. I love CJ Hines. TJ Matlock is a guy that can really get it done. Isaiah Range is a guy who glad to see him bounce back from his injury last season. But I'm not really sure where they are and where they can be. So they can, if there was one team that I had to pick out of, 5 through 11 or 5 through 8 on my seedings that didn't make the tournament, I would probably pick them because I just think right now I'm not certain on these guys. And with 7 games left in the season and you're not certain on a team, that's a problem. So I think they can get there because I think playing at home for a few of those games is very favorable. They do have 4 of their last 7 at home, but 2 of those 4 are against your top two teams. So that is increased the level of difficulty a bit. Those teams are beatable. Don't get me wrong. This is not a conference where I think the number one team is head and shoulders above everybody else. Or the second team is head and shoulders above everybody else. Everybody in this conference can beat anybody. So it's not a foregone conclusion playing those two teams at the end of the season. But you don't want to go into those two games needing them both to make the tournament. So if they come out of that 5 games portion with enough, with some momentum, then those last 2 games don't really matter as much because I think they'll be in. Number 5 is Jackson State, and this is a team that's been riddled with injury, but they still find themselves sitting at the 5 seed, and I think that's probably where they're going to finish. I think they're going to finish like 5 or 6. I think 7 would be extreme. I don't see them missing it because unless they went on another 4-game losing streak like they did in the middle of the schedule. Unless they did something like that, then I don't see them. Then that would be the only way I see them not making it. So I think Jackson State is going to be a 4, 5, or 6 seed. If they got hot and closed out strong, I could see them with a 3 seed. It would take a little bit of movement ahead of them, but they have the opportunity to make some of those moves happen. They play FAMU this weekend. They play Bethune-Cookman, which is a team ranked ahead of them. They play Alcorn, which can help them. They play at Texas Southern, which is a team ahead of them, at Prairie View, and then they close out at home against Pine Bluff and Valley, 2 teams they just beat this past weekend. So the Bethune-Cookman, Alcorn, and Texas Southern games are gonna tell a tale for Jackson State. If they can win those games, which they went 2-1 against those teams earlier in the season, if they could win those games, then they will be sitting in a really good spot. If they come out of this weekend at 8-5, I think they're solidly battling for a 3 or 4 seed. So I think even with everything this team has been through with the injuries and everything, for them to still be sitting at the 5 spot, it says a lot. And I think that movement can be up. I don't really see them dropping too much. I think the battle for 4 and 5 and 6 is kind of like Alcorn, Texas Southern, who I'm about to talk about next, and Bethune-Cookman. I think those 4 teams, Alcorn, Jackson, Texas Southern, Bethune-Cookman, I think those 4 teams are gonna battle it out for that 3, 4, 5, 6 spot. Somebody may finish 7th if one of the teams below them get hot, but I think you can rearrange those teams any way you want, and that's how they'll finish. Like I said, Texas Southern right now is the 4th seed. They got Grambling and Southern at home this weekend, so 2 big games for them, 2 teams ahead of them. They can win both of those games. They beat Grambling already, and they lost to Southern in a low-scoring game where they didn't shoot well, but they still only lost by 7. So they can win both of these games, and playing at home is something that Texas Southern does well. Cisse and Henry, they can get hot in games like this. There'll be a problem for either one of these teams. So they still have a chance to, I would say, finish 2nd. Or if they won out and the first place team won 2 games, they could finish tied for 1st. I can see that. I can see them finishing 1st. Or I can see them, dropping a couple games and finishing 5th or 6th. So I think they're gonna move around. The top 4 teams all have a shot at finishing at number 1 if some things happen to the number 1 team. I don't think anybody with more than 4 losses is gonna finish in the top spot. Both of those teams, 3 and 4, would have to win out to get there, but they both play the 2 teams ahead of them, so that's good momentum up the ladder. So, like I said, Texas Southern they got Southern and Grambling at home this weekend. They go to Valley, they go to Pine Bluff, 2 games that they can win. They did lose to Pine Bluff earlier, but I still think they can beat them. They get Jackson and Alcorn at home, which are 2 huge games again, and Prairie View, which is a rivalry game. And you just never know what happens at the end of the season. So TSU is in. I don't think they would not make it. They will have to really hit a cold streak not to make it. They will have to drop quite a few games to finish probably lower than 6th place. So I think they're solidly in that pack, 3 or 4. One, if they found some kind of way to get hot, and it's not impossible. Same thing goes for my number 3 team. They can get hot and find themselves in a 1 or 2 seed, but I don't think they'll finish worse than 6, and that's Bethune-Cookman. They finish out at Alcorn, at Jackson State, two big road games. They get the Bama schools at home the following weekend. Then they go to Louisiana the next to last weekend of the season. Then they close out at FAMU. So they close out with 3 road games. They have 5 of their last 7 on the road. They benefited from a lot of road games, a lot of home games early in the schedule, and it flips in the second half. So they have to go on the road a lot, and they close out on a 3-game road trip. So if they were to finish anywhere higher than 4th place, it would be because they were able to win games on the road. They would probably need to go 3-2 in those 5 3-2 in those 5 road games to really be comfortable. If they win the majority of those games, I think they are sitting in a good spot for a high seed. But if they were to falter on the road, they can find themselves anywhere in the middle portion of the standings. I do think they're in. Just like TSU, I don't see them dropping out unless they were to lose all their games and finish at 7-11, which I don't see happening. So they're in the tournament. I think they're just fighting for a spot with an outside spot at the number 1 seed because they play the 2 teams in front of them. Grambling is number 2. Again, I think Grambling's gonna finish pretty strong. They may drop a game or 2 in this last portion of the schedule, but they're solidly in. I personally think they're no worse than the 3 seed going into the tournament. Definitely can be the 1 seed because they have, a game against Southern coming up that's gonna really help in that standing, in that tiebreaker. They get Texas Southern and Prairie View on the road this weekend. They do need to win those games. A split doesn't hurt, but I prefer to win games on the road if I can. So they're in a pretty good spot going into this weekend. If they lose both of those games, I don't think it's catastrophic, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think at worst they split those 2 games. Then you get Southern at home, which is a team that you've been successful against for the last 4 years or so. So there's a level of comfort going into that game that you don't fear that game. So you'll be able to play your style of ball and probably pick up a win. You get the Florida teams at home. You beat both of those earlier. So you get opportunity to pick up a couple of sweeps, and then you go to Bama twice to close out the season. Now you lost to Alabama and them in an upset, so you want to get that game back, and you beat Bama State. So I see Grambling finishing no worse than 3rd. I think they go probably no worse than 5-2 in their last 7 games, and that puts them solidly at 3rd place, probably no worse than 4th. So I still think Grambling's going to win the regular season. If you've been reading my power rankings, then I've said Grambling is my pick to win the regular season. So I still think they can get there because they have some games against teams that that they can move up in the standings against, and then teams that they've had success against already. So they do have some treacherous games. They do play 2 of the 3 teams that beat them already. So, they have an opportunity to get that win back, but those teams have also already beaten them. One at home, they both beat them at home, and now they have to play them both on the road. So that's a tough task, but I think Grambling can navigate it, and I think they can make it. Southern right now is sitting at number 1. I don't think they'll finish there. They've been playing solid ball, but I still think not having your top guy, your top scorer, is gonna catch up with you at some point. So right now they're on a hot streak. You may drop one at some point. A split here doesn't kill you. A split here, and even if Grambling wins those 2 games and you split, you're still tied with them on the schedule the next week. So that there's no real danger in this weekend for Southern. I think even if they were to not win either one of these games, I think they still are in a good spot, especially, like I said, because they play Grambling the following week. And then you get Bethune-Cookman and FAMU at home. Southern is undefeated at home in this season, so they do play the 2 teams that beat them They get them both at home. Now they both beat them once. They can beat them again. It's not impossible. So those are not easy games at home. Southern's home schedule is pretty tough. You have right now the number 2 and 3 team on in the standings at home, and then FAMU, who is 11. So you have a tough task at home. If you can navigate that, then I think you can find yourself in a good spot. I personally think Southern's gonna finish 4 and 3 in this stretch. I just think that they're gonna drop one of those games in Alabama at least, and they're probably gonna drop one of those games this weekend, and they'll probably drop one of those home games. So I think that'll put them at that'll put them with 5 conference losses, 13 and 5. So that's not that's still probably no worse than 3, maybe 4, but I think they'll finish somewhere in that 2 or 3 range. With the outside shot to finish first. I think this team is still developing. I know that sounds crazy late in the season, but this was a team of 11 new guys. And so 11 new guys, a new head coach. They still, have some things going on. They're playing without the leading scorer who scores 20 points a game. Playing without that is huge. So they kind of have a little bit more adversity between them and Grambling. I just like Grambling more in a head-to-head matchup. So that's the reason why I do think Southern can, it's not impossible for Southern to win these games and finish first. But right now I think Grambling will end up ultimately in the 1 seed. Now, saying all of that, with the tournament being, one and done, whatever 8 teams make it, I would probably say 7 of those 8 can win it. I don't know who the 8 team will be, but 7 of those 8 I can easily see winning it. So having a 1 seed doesn't really change. It doesn't really change into the chaos of the season. It just means that you came out on top at the end of the regular season. There is no NIT auto bid, so you don't have that in your back pocket as the number 1 seed. It's do or die from round 1 to the championship. You can't drop that first game and be like, well, we're gonna, we can go to NIT. That's not gonna happen. Maybe Southern with that, if Southern was to finish with a strong record, if Southern was to, let's say Southern, let's say they won 6 out of 7, that would put them at 21 and 10. They do have a couple non-conference victories that may get them in, but the NIT is making a push more this year for bigger name teams. So your team, your SWAC champ who doesn't win the tournament is probably going to get bumped for some mid-major who, had a great season and maybe finished second, or 8th place ACC team. So the odds of making it probably are slimmer, but it's going to take at least 20 wins to get in the NIT. So that's something that's not in your back pocket that makes every game crucial for the number 1 seed. If you get knocked out, you're home till next year. You can put up all your equipment. So with that being said, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. Check out the SWAC basketball. If you can get to a game, you should already be at the games, because you should catch the women's game first and then the men's games. But some people can't make one, you make the other one. So whichever way it goes, man, if you can make it to a game this weekend, man, please do support SWAC basketball. Check out bustingbrackets.com, and I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.